Today we're going to look at the quiet resentment that builds up in the middle tier around promotion cycles. You know what I'm talking about, right? The person who does everything entirely by the book. They show up early, they volunteer for the culture committees, right? They clean up the internal spreadsheets without ever complaining, and they consistently suppress their own ego for the unity of the team. Now, by every available metric, they're the perfect corporate citizen. Now, let's say the leadership announces the new roster of partners and managing directors. That model employee is almost always bypassed. To their dismay, the seat goes to an outsider. It's someone who spent half the year ignoring internal bureaucracy, breaking very minor protocols, and focusing entirely on their own high visibility initiatives. It's a political tragedy. They write long, earnest posts about toxic environments and why meritocracy is dead, right? But let's take a step back and strip away all that emotional narrative. The system's operating exactly the way it was designed to. We manufacture the myth of the good citizen because the system requires them, right? An organization needs a predictable baseline to stabilize its lower tiers. People who are so used to keeping the peace because they learned that being compliant is what keeps the system running. Now, if everyone is acting like an outsider, the whole operation would fall apart in a matter of months, right? So the system handles this by treating citizenship as its own reward. They give you a nice title on some random subcommittee, right? And then they let you speak on the internal panel on collaboration. They pay you an empty praise, but hold all the decision-making leverage for the ones who aren't afraid to go against that grain. For example, let's think about a common interaction here, okay? A project is veering off the rails and the department head asks who can stay late on a Friday to clean up the documentation. So the team player immediately steps up. They cancel their dinner plans, they spend 4 or 5 hours reformatting the slides and make sure the Monday morning presentation looks absolutely flawless. Monday arrives, department head gives him a quick verbal shout out on the start of the call, right? And really, huge thanks to John for saving us over the weekend, something like that, right? And then the meeting just moves on. Team player thinks he's built the equity. Actually though, he just established a new budget baseline for his own utility. Leadership now knows exactly what it costs to buy your weekend. A 10-second public compliment. It's pretty economical, right? Now, we're going to contrast that with the outlier. They declined the weekend work because they were preparing for a strategic brief for a major sponsor. They didn't save the slides, they just repositioned the narrative. Real weight in an organization doesn't come from executing the manual with beautiful precision. You need to control the assets that the manual cannot replace. If you're always worried about fitting in or being a team player, you're giving up your own utility. You're trading that social comfort, right? And the organization is smart enough to take that deal. They'll keep you exactly where you are, safely out of the way. Now, the important part here, amateurs think that breaking out of this loop requires this sudden aggressive display of arrogance. They start speaking over people or gatekeeping information to look powerful, right? It's an incredibly transparent, low status defensive play though. You don't need to break the rules to prove a point. High agency players just operate on a different system. They fulfill standard requirements with quiet efficiency, but they don't squander their identity in the domestic chores of the office. They save their real energy for the moves that actually change their own game. For example, landing big clients, building systems that you couldn't hire someone off the street to replicate. So, let the room default to its habit of managing the harmony, okay? The next time you're tempted to take an orphan task to keep the peace or prove that you're a team player, please look at the trade. Is this actually going to secure your future? Or are you settling for comfort to keep the status quo for someone else? See you in the next one.